Good afternoon. This is Olga Tamanova, Media Center in Ukrinform. 9th year of the war, 152nd day from the beginning of the full-fledged invasion. I would like to thank everyone who is telling the world about the big liberation war of the Ukrainian people. Today our team has prepared the following events. At 13:30 we'll have Natalia Gumenyuk, the head of the United Coordinating Press Center of Security and Defense Forces of the south of Ukraine. We'll be talking about the situation in the south. At 2 p.m. Here we'll have Alexander Kubrakov, the Minister of Infrastructure, and Mykola Solsky, the Minister of Agrarian Policy and Food. And we'll be talking about the safe transportation of grain and food via Ukraine's seaports. And right now we have online Dmytro Butriy, the acting head of Kherson Oblast military administration. Dmytro, hello, can you hear us? Yes? Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Dmytro, let's talk about what's happening in Kherson region. What's the humanitarian and social situation there right now? Right now in Kherson region, the humanitarian and social situations keep being tense. The occupiers intensify the terror against the civilians. Medical availability remains to be critical, as well as foodstuff, hygiene products. The orcs, like I said, have intensified the terror, the checks of our citizens, that is to say, searches of people. People keep being disappearing in unknown direction. They keep shelling and ruining the villages and settlements in Kherson region constantly, so the situation remains to be critical. Dmytro, we can see that our armed forces are successfully attacking the enemy command posts and weapons depots, especially recently in Kherson region. Do you have any information on that? Let's discuss it some more. Yes, our armed forces, to deliver on the order of our president, Volodymyr Zelensky, keep pushing at our enemy, bringing step-by-step the liberation of Kherson region from the Russian occupiers. It's true, they work quite accurately, hitting the depots, the gatherings of live forces, and recently especially on logistics hubs of the enemy. You know, they hit the Antoniv, Darytka and Kakhovka bridges, which substantially weakens their logistics routes, especially for heavy equipment. Now it's being made very difficult. They're trying to repair those bridges. We heard that they are planning to use some pontoon bridges there, but believe you me, our soldiers will keep working effectively and accurately on those targets. It will not help them. It's just a sign for them that it's high time for them to start fleeing from the territory of Ukraine and Kherson in particular. As to the Antoniv Bridge, we've seen pictures in open sources as showing that occupiers are trying to repair this bridge. Can you tell us what they use for that? Do they use local residents? Do we have an understanding now as to who is trying to rebuild the ruined bridge? Who's being involved there in those repairs? We have no such data just yet, but like I said, it will definitely not help them in any way. We heard the information that after such accurate hits of occupiers' depots, now they're trying to redeploy them, bringing them closer to the housing, to the houses, to the residential areas. So is it true? Yeah, that's their tactics. They used to have it, they still have it. Their military equipment, they constantly deploy in the villages, and the villages, that's at the backyards. So unfortunately, that's still their practice. Dmytro, now we'll move to the Q&A session. So colleagues, your questions, please. Tkachuk Svetlana, Ukrinform. I have a number of questions to you, and we'll start probably with an economic block. My first question is this: which social payments to the people that stay at the occupied territories people face problems? Why? In mass media, in social media, we read about inadequate child care payments. Yeah, we constantly stay in touch with those citizens who are staying at the temporarily occupied territories, who haven't fled. Yeah, it's true there is a slight delay, but by the end of this week, those payments will be made. Okay, then, does it cover the payments to Genichivsk community? Genichivsk community is a separate story altogether. You know that the city authorities have fled in the first days of the invasion. There were problems with electronic keys and everything else, but then by the presidential order, the new mayor has been assigned, who formed all the needed government institutions that are up and running. All the technical issues have been resolved. So by the end of this week, at the territory of Henichinsk community, all the needed payments will be made to the teachers, doctors, etc. One more thing. Can you tell me, please, whether whether anything has been done so collaborators would not be paid any salaries? Well, of course we are looking into this, but I would not like divulge them online because they are listening to us. So measures being taken. I see. Well, one more thing. Is there any information about abducted people? How many people were abducted? We do monitor this information as well, but you should recognize that there is a certain problem with getting our hands on the information from the temporarily occupied territories, but still we are forming the database that contains currently 63 persons who are employees of the local self-governments and about 300 activists, pro-Ukrainian activists, people who've been staying at the temporarily occupied territory. There are around 300 of them. One more thing. These are confirmed cases, but the total statistics might be bigger because, like I said, the orcs have intensified the terror against the civilians, non-combatants. They searching their cars, personal belongings, telephones. They force men to take off their clothes, and if they don't like something on their phone or a tattoo, they just take people away. And unfortunately, we just have this information that 2 people were taken there, 3 people there, but confirming the exact names of such persons is impossible right now, but the number is big. Is there any information about any murdered people of those who were abducted? Yes, about 10 days ago we have received 2 Kherson activists who were tortured to death and shot to death. I see. Well, now, about the evacuation. The green corridors are absent, so the residents of the occupied territories can only go in round ways using the occupied Crimea and Vasilievka. So what's the general situation? Do the occupiers let the people through? Well, we didn't have green corridors from the very beginning. Some accidental crossing points to the controlled territory, they would come into existence, pop up here and there. Now it's Vasilievka village towards Zaporizhia. The occupiers, of course, are creating certain problems for people to move. There is quite a number of vehicles and people gathered there, people who are willing to flee. And the second option, using Crimea. And we do give this advice to people. Use whatever options you have, but flee the temporarily occupied territory. So yeah, people are using their own transportation means or with the help of volunteers. So, can we replenish the funds that cooperate with the volunteers, thus giving more chances for people to flee the occupied territory? Of course, yeah. I'm grateful to our volunteers who from day one were bringing foodstuff and medical supplies, and even now they are helping us to evacuate as many people as possible, doing this free of charge. So of course we're trying to use whatever funds that are available, because the vehicles need to be repaired, and then the fuel and etc. So I'm grateful to all the people and funds that are being involved in helping our volunteers and through them to our compatriots. Another question about evacuation. Sergei Kozyr, the MP, wrote that he is trying to deal with the bribes paid to get into the temporarily occupied territory, because the right to get there have only volunteers, organizations who are helping people. So can you tell us, please, are you resolving this issue with the with this bribery component? Yes, together with Sergei Kozyr, the member of parliament, deputy mayor, deputy governor Sobolevsky, and another MP. We had quite a serious delegation. We visited the head of the administration and visited that particular crossing point. And from the conversations, truly there were facts of unscrupulous businessmen, so to speak, who are trying to earn their living by overcharging for the service of a vacation. So we have launched a large-scale law enforcement operation. So I warn those unscrupulous people, the police is on and you will face trouble, because it's unacceptable using up this tremendous tremendous problem for the country to make good use of it. Well, the occupiers are getting ready to conduct referenda on the occupied territory, temporary occupied territories, including in Kherson region, and they're handing out Russian passports. So what's the situation in your region right now? It's true, from the very beginning of the occupation, the Russian Federation has been coming up with different ways of trying to integrate the territory of the Kherson region into the Russian Federation as a separate republic, or adding them to other territories. So they never uh, gave up on those plans. They had the groups of their politicians coming there, working on this all the time. Sorry, some technical troubles. So various spin doctors who were dealing with organizing all that, and a fake administration that has been created from local traitors and collaborants. So even until now, they haven't dropped this idea, but the rhetorics after the accurate hitting of the Ukrainian armed forces have changed. So they talked about different dates, but now it seems like they don't have a clue themselves, because it's never going to be realized in the first place. We have the last question from the journalists, please. Yes, Dmytro, that's the last question. Periodically, we read statements that the occupiers appoint their appointees to certain positions. Do they have actual influence on people, or are they just accomplices in terror? And do you have any information about whether people who are currently staying at the temporarily occupied territories, what sort of pressure, especially propaganda pressure, they have to endure from Russian side? Sorry for technical troubles. So starting from creating a fake administration stuffed with traitors and collaborants. Also, they just search for those turncoats, people with criminal history. So, with criminal records, people who worked as heavy lifters, well, of course, they have no skills or even understanding how to manage the territories. It's being done just to terrorize people. There is no efficient work done on ensuring the viability of those territories. It's a clear-cut terror, and intimidation. Our teachers suffer the most because they have plans to switch our schools to some unclear Russian curriculum. So the pressure is tremendous. They're being blackmailed, abducted, coerced, intimidated, forcing them to use Russian programs and Russian flag. But our teachers are very patriotic people. They will not be working with them, but some will. So unfortunately, we come across some of cases when traitors agree to work for the occupiers, but their fate would be unequivocal. They would be prosecuted. Now, about the critical infrastructure, what's the status of it? I've been visiting the liberated territories. Currently, that's 44 settlements. So these are destroyed villages with destroyed infrastructure, with destroyed kindergartens, high power lines, no access to electricity, to water supply, gas supply suffered. Some settlements have been ruined 99%, others 70, 50%. Shellings and ruinations are still going on. At the temporarily occupied territories, the occupiers are also destroying our infrastructure, stealing our companies and businesses that use, well, to help with vital municipal services. So catastrophic situation. Thank you for finding time and joining us here. This is Butriy, acting head of Kherson Oblast military civil administration. Thank you, Mr. Dmytro, esteemed colleagues. Let me remind you that our next briefing will happen at 1:30. Natalia Guminyuk, live with us online, will be talking about Kherson region and the south.